Hi! Today we are going to talk about the books I read in January and February. And in case you don't know me, I'm Clara and I'm the owner of this channel, The Ink Path. Today we are going to chat a little bit about the books that I read in January and February. I know that February is not finished yet, but I'm quite sure that I'm not going to finish all the books I wanted to finish this month, or the books I'm currently reading at least, and that's why I decided to do the wrap up a little bit early. Now, for those who don't know, this year I have decided not to do a kind of reading goals video or anything like that. I don't have any goals at all other than trying to increase my reading, my Goodreads reading goal from 30, which is the normal amount that I normally read around, to 35, because last year I was lucky enough to surpass it by that number, so I decided to start or to do the finish line like 35 books instead. Having said that, these past 2 months have been a little bit of a mess because I've been ill. I thought I was recovered and then I went ill again. I went worse and I went to the doctors and to the hospital, so I did not so much as reading for like work, but I did a lot of reading for leisure because I was not able to work. That's why I read so much. In total so far I've read 11 books. I've read 6 books in January and 5 books in February so far. So we're going to talk a little bit with the help of the reading tracker of Goodreads. We're going to talk a little bit about the books that I read in these 2 months. The first book I read was Enchantee by, I'm probably saying it wrong, but I think her name properly said is Gita. Let me check. Yes, Gita Trellis wrote Enchantee, which is the first book I read this year, which I finished on the 4th of January. After that, I listened to an audio dramatization of Little Women, which is my favorite book of all times. I decided to re-listen because I already did listen to this 3 years ago when it was released. I listened to a radio dramatization of the novel that was done in one of the Spanish radio broadcasters, or one of the most important ones, and it was created, this dramatization, to celebrate Christmas of 3 years ago, but I wanted to kick off the new year with kind of warm, fuzzy feeling that Little Women gives me every single time. Plus, I went to see the film and I adore it. So yes, the great new version of Little Women. It's called. After that, I started feeling a little bit weird, but I wasn't sure what was that I was suffering from. So I continue on pushing myself and working and all. But I decided to start working with audiobooks because I didn't have to listen to. I just had to read, so I decided to put an audiobook on the like a background noise, and I listened to a radio dramatization of In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Again, this is a radio dramatization done in Spanish. I really like it, and I will tell you more about it when I do the review. After that, I decided to read, and I finished reading because I was reading this book while I was listening to Little Women and In Cold Blood. I decided in January that I wanted to sign up to NetGalley, which is a service which provides from which provides arcs from several publishers. This book is not, this video is not sponsored by NetGalley by any means. I want to clarify that. But I wanted to try, and I decided to sign up, and I asked for the first book that I saw that I was really wanting to read, which is A Midnight Lie. As I said before, The Midnight Lie is set in the same universe as the Winner's Trilogy, but 20 or so years later, and it doesn't involve any of the main characters of the first trilogy. However, it's set in the same universe, so there are mentions of the other characters and so on. And I like it, and I cannot wait to do the review, because next week is the publication date for The Midnight Lie, and you will probably have the review by then, so don't worry, you will see me soon talking about this book. I have so many fields to talk through them with you. Then I was getting worse in my health, but I managed to complete the trilogy that I started over the summer, which is His Dark Materials. By January I had the last book in the installment. I have the I think it's called the Amber Spyglass. I had that left, so I finished it, and then after finish that up, that I really like it, and I think the world was really cool. I'll talk to you more about the whole trilogy in a spoiler-free review of the trilogy. So after that, what I did was to go and see a production of King John by William Shakespeare. This was a very special moment for me, because one of the members of this production was a drama professor of mine that I had when I was a teenager. If you don't know this fact about me, I spent around 10 years in a drama school, and she was very important in my later years, in the last 3 years of my drama, or my kind of stage education, if you will. And she was portraying three or four characters in the whole play, because they were like a very small cast, and they were switching from one role to the other using small props like jackets and so on. So we went to see King John, which is one of the historical plays by William Shakespeare, which is tricky for me because it's the most complicated set of plays that I've either read by him or seen in any production, TV, stage. It's the most complicated in my opinion, mainly because I'm Spanish. We don't know so much about medieval England or medieval history in England, and that's why sometimes the historical plays are either less frequent staged here in Spain and in Spanish, and maybe that's why it's not a set of plays that a lot of Spanish readers or Spanish viewers actually comprehend as a whole. However, I had the quite understanding of it. So after watching the performance, after watching King John, I went slowly worse from what was going on with me, that I wasn't quite sure, and I went to the doctors, and I had a really severe infection, but whatever was happening wasn't working because I continued getting worse. That meant that I have to go to the hospital and get checked, and in the following days I started having fever and being very kind of weak and all. So I had to stop working, and the only things I could do was actually reading. And in that period of time I managed to read a few other books. I managed to, let me check that I actually say right, I managed to listen to an audiobook while I was resting, which was Waiting for Tom Hanks by Kerry Winfrey. And I don't normally read romance and less contemporary romance. It's not a genre that it's for me. However, I found it in my kind of English library loan audiobook section, and I decided to give it a go. It was fluffy and sweet and warm, and that's what I needed when I was getting so sick. But I also managed to listen to an Agatha Christie short story called Three Blind Mice. I read this one because there was a point in my recovery in which I thought I was getting better, so I decided to work a little bit, and of course I wasn't getting better. I actually had to stay home with higher fever for a few more days, but in that day I was feeling better and the fever was apparently gone, so I decided to listen to this as a kind of background noise while I was working, because I was reading other stuff, and I knew that this was the short story that was based on, or that was used to create the famous play that is still going in London. So I decided to give it a go in a dramatization format. So I had the actors playing in my head to mesmerize me, and I really like it. However, after that I got very sick, and I only had energy to read and lay down, and I managed to finish what I think is my favorite book of the year so far, which is Love Letters to the Dead by Ava de Lyra, and I was heartbroken, but I really enjoyed it. In the process, I also read a couple of chapters of Blood Air, which is an upcoming book by, if I'm able to say it right, Amélie Wensau. And I'm saying a couple of chapters because I read this through NetGalley again. However, I only read 2 chapters because they were the only chapters available in the webpage. So again, I will talk to you about this in a short review when the book is out, because I have a lot of thoughts about it as well. While I was recovering, the only thing I was able to do was listening to audiobooks and finishing short books. That's why I decided to read and finish on the same day. Neil Gaiman's Art Matters, with illustration by Chris Riddle, which are beautiful. I love it, and it's a push I needed to work on a project that has been sitting on my desk mainly for 5 years now, and yeah, I need to push through that. What I'm reading at the moment, I am listening to The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, as well as reading a book about gods and Greek mythology in general for a project that I'm working on. And also I'm reading a Spanish book called Héroes de Cobre by Iguacel Serón and Marta Álvarez. So I'm reading those 3 at the moment, so that's what is going on. But I wanted to tell you which books I read so far. Of all these books, you will probably have either combined reviews or individual reviews, but you will have reviews anyway. So keep your eyes open for the next weeks. Next week we are going to have the Midnight Live review, because next week is actually on the 3rd of March. Is when the Midnight Light is going to be released, if the date has not been moved. So that's when you will have it. On that Friday you will have it. So all I want to know right now is which books have you read so far in January and February. Let me know in the comment section down below. See you next week, okay? Bye!